Put your hand over your chest for a second. Right now. Feel that? That steady rhythm that has never once asked your permission to keep going, it just beats. Through every sleepless night. Through every prayer you thought went unanswered. Through every season you were certain you wouldn't survive. It kept beating. Now I want you to understand something, because this is where we begin today. God gave you that heartbeat. He wound it up before you took your first breath. And He has never, not once, asked you to stop it. He has never asked you to bleed yourself dry to prove you love Him. But somebody did. Somebody convinced you that following God means losing everything. That being chosen means being emptied. That the more you suffer, the more spiritual you must be. And I'm here to tell you that whoever taught you that was not teaching you the heart of the Father. They were teaching you the fear of a slave. There are 7 things God will never ask you to sacrifice. 7. And by the time we get to number 5, I think something in you is going to break open. Because it's the one nobody talks about. It's the one you've been quietly laying on the altar for years, thinking it made you holy, when all along it was making you hollow. So stay with me. Don't skip ahead. Because if you clicked on this, I already know something about you. You've been giving pieces of yourself away in the name of God, and a part of you has started to wonder if He even asked for them. He didn't. Let's start with the first one. The first thing God will never ask you to sacrifice is your peace. Now hear me carefully. I'm not talking about comfort. God will absolutely disturb your comfort. He'll pull you out of the easy chair and send you somewhere you didn't plan to go. But peace and comfort are not the same thing. Comfort is the couch. Peace is the anchor. Think about a boat in a storm. The waves are crashing. The wind is howling. The whole vessel is rocking, but down beneath the water, that anchor is holding steady in the deep. That's peace. It doesn't mean the storm stopped. It means something down inside you refuses to be moved. I've watched people give that away. I've watched them trade their peace for the approval of a church that never fed them, for a ministry that used them up, for relationships where they were always the one apologizing, always the one bending, always the one shrinking, so somebody else could feel tall. And they called it sacrifice. They called it dying to self. But listen, Jesus said, "Peace I leave with you, my peace I give unto you." He didn't say, "I'll loan it to you until somebody more demanding comes along." He gave it. It's yours. And any voice, any relationship, any obligation that requires you to hand over your peace as the price of belonging, that voice is not from heaven. Look at Elijah for a moment. This is the prophet who called down fire from the sky. This is the man who stood alone against 450 prophets of Baal and won. And yet, just 1 chapter later, we find him under a broom tree in the wilderness, so drained, so depleted, that he asked God to take his life. He had given everything, poured out everything, and he had nothing left. And here's what God did. He didn't rebuke him. He didn't say, "How dare you be tired after all I did through you?" No, God sent an angel to let him sleep, to feed him, to let him rest under that tree until his strength came back. Twice, the angel touched him and said, "Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you." That's your God, the one who protects your peace even when you've forgotten how to protect it yourself. He is not the taskmaster standing over you demanding more. He's the one who says, "Sit down, eat, rest, I've got the rest of the road." So write this down in your spirit. Your peace is not a bargaining chip. It's a birthright. The second thing God will never ask you to sacrifice is your voice. There are people watching right now who have not spoken their truth in years. You've swallowed it. You've buried it so deep that some mornings you're not even sure what you actually think anymore, because you've spent so long saying what keeps everybody else calm. Maybe it happened in your family. You were the peacemaker, the one who kept everything from falling apart. And somewhere along the way you learned that your voice was the thing that made trouble. So you stopped using it. Maybe it happened in church, where questions weren't welcome, where doubt got you labeled, where the safest thing was to nod and smile, and never say what was really stirring in you. But I want you to look at how God actually deals with his people. He argues with them. He lets them wrestle. Think about Jeremiah, a man so honest with God that he said, "You deceived me, Lord, and I was deceived." Can you imagine? A prophet telling God to his face that he felt tricked, that the calling had cost him more than he ever signed up for, that he was mocked all day long and wanted to quit. And did lightning strike him? Did God cast him out? No. God kept talking to him, kept using him. Because the God of the Bible is not fragile. He's not threatened by your honesty. He would rather have your raw, unfiltered, messy voice than your polite silence. Let me stay with Jeremiah a moment longer, because his whole life is a testimony against the lie you've been believing. This was a young man when God called him, and the first thing out of his mouth was, "I can't speak. I'm only a child." He tried to talk his way out of it. He told God he didn't have the words. And God didn't scold him for that. God reached out, touched his mouth and said, "I have put my words in your mouth." He didn't demand that Jeremiah manufacture the voice himself. He supplied it. And then look at what that voice cost him. Jeremiah spoke the truth to a nation that didn't want to hear it. They threw him in a pit. They left him sinking in the mud at the bottom of a cistern, abandoned, forgotten, up to his waist in the mire. And even from the bottom of that pit, he kept his voice. Because a man who lets God fill his mouth cannot be silenced by a hole in the ground. There's a lesson in that for you. Sometimes the truest thing you'll ever say will be the thing that gets you thrown in the pit. But the pit is not the end of your voice. God pulled Jeremiah out with ropes and old rags, let down by a foreigner who couldn't stand to watch him suffer. God always sends the rope. Keep speaking. You were not given a voice so you could rent it out to whoever shouts the loudest. You were given a voice to speak life, to tell the truth, to worship, to weep out loud when weeping is what's real. And a God who formed your tongue in the womb is not asking you to cut it out to keep the peace at somebody else's table. Say something true today, even if your voice shakes. The third thing God will never ask you to sacrifice is your identity. This one runs deep, so lean in. Because there's a difference between transformation and erasure, and the enemy loves to blur that line. God transforms you. Absolutely. He takes the you that's buried under fear and shame and old wounds, and he calls the real you out of the grave. But he never erases you. He never asks you to become somebody else's version of holy. He never asks you to copy and paste another person's calling over your own. Think about how many different kinds of people God used in the scriptures. He used Moses, who couldn't speak well. He used David, a shepherd boy who wrote poetry and fought lions. He used Ruth, a foreigner who refused to leave. He used Peter, loud and impulsive and always putting his foot in his mouth. He didn't sand them all down into one shape. He used the very grain of who they were. And that includes you. The way you notice things other people miss. The way certain songs undo you. The way you feel the weight of a room the second you walk in. The way you've always been a little bit different, a little bit set apart, always sensing there was more underneath the surface of things. That's not a flaw to be corrected. That's the fingerprint of God on your life. I've met so many believers who spent years trying to shrink into somebody more acceptable, trying to feel less, trying to want less, trying to be a quieter, smaller, more convenient version of themselves, so they'd stop making waves. And they called it humility. But it wasn't humility. It was the slow murder of the person God actually made. Humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's knowing exactly who you are and where it came from. Moses was called the most humble man on earth, and he stood in front of Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go." Humility and boldness are not enemies. They're partners. You are not too much. You were never too much. You were made on purpose, with intention, by a God who does not make mistakes and does not do mass production. Now, before we get to number 5, the one I promised would shock you, I need to say something directly to the person watching this who feels it. Who feels this message landing somewhere words don't usually reach. There are messages that pass through your eyes, and there are messages that pass through your spirit. If something in you recognized itself while watching, don't dismiss it. That is the Spirit confirming what was already written. The secret protocol carries 7 keys that unveil what heaven deposited in you before you ever arrive, things no one around you has ever been able to name. It comes with the full audiobook for your moments of prayer, silence, and encounter with God. And you also receive the Awakening Map, the guide that illuminates the 5 seasons of spiritual awakening, revealing with precision exactly where you are and what comes next. The link is pinned in the first comment, but only for a limited time. Don't let this moment pass without a response. Now, number 4. Because we're building toward 5, and you'll understand why the order matters, the 4th thing God will never ask you to sacrifice is your discernment. You know that feeling. That quiet check in your gut when something looks right on the outside, but sits wrong on the inside. That hesitation you can't explain. That inner alarm that goes off when everyone else in the room seems perfectly comfortable, and you're the only one who can't settle. You've been taught to override that. Somewhere along the line, someone told you it was fear. Someone told you it was you being difficult, being paranoid, being unloving, being judgmental. And so you learned to silence the very thing God gave you to keep you safe. But discernment is a gift of the Spirit. It's not suspicion. It's not cynicism. It's the God-given ability to sense what's underneath the surface, to feel the difference between what's being said and what's actually true. And the people who benefit most from you ignoring your discernment are usually the ones who don't want you to have it. Look at the story of the woman with the alabaster jar. She walked into a room full of religious men and poured out something priceless on the feet of Jesus. And every man in that room judged her. Every one of them had an opinion. The waste, the impropriety, the scandal of it. But Jesus saw what they couldn't. He discerned her heart. He said, what she did would be told wherever the gospel is preached. Forever. The whole room got it wrong, and one person got it right. Discernment is being the one who gets it right when the whole room gets it wrong. And think about Daniel. Here's a man who lived his entire life surrounded by voices telling him what was normal, what was acceptable, what everybody else was doing. The whole kingdom bowed when the music played. Everyone. It was the expected thing, the safe thing, the thing that kept you employed and kept you breathing. And Daniel felt that check in his spirit that said no. Not this. Something is wrong here, no matter how many people around me think it's fine. He didn't argue. He didn't make a scene. He just quietly went to his window, the same as he always had. And he prayed. He trusted the alarm inside him over the roar of the entire crowd. And yes, it cost him. It landed him in a den of lions. But that same discernment that got him thrown in was the faith that shut the lions' mouths all night long. He walked out in the morning without a scratch, and the king who threw him in ended up praising his God. That's what your discernment is for. Not to make you paranoid, not to make you cold, but to keep you standing at your window, doing the right thing. When the whole kingdom is bowing to something you know in your bones you cannot bow to. Don't let anybody talk you out of the alarm bell God built into your spirit. It has saved you more times than you know. It will save you again. And now number 5. The one I told you would shock you. Here it is. The 5th thing God will never ask you to sacrifice is your rest. I know. You expected something dramatic. But sit with this one, because I promise you, it is the most quietly devastating item on this entire list. Because rest is the one you've been sacrificing your whole life without ever calling it a sacrifice. Think about it. Have you ever felt guilty for resting? Have you ever felt like sitting still was a kind of sin? Like if you weren't producing, serving, giving, striving, laboring, you weren't worth anything? Like God was tapping his foot, waiting for you to earn your place all over again? That is not God. That is a lie so old it goes all the way back to Egypt. Here's what most people miss. When the people of God were slaves in Egypt, they had no rest. Pharaoh's whole system was built on the belief that a person's value is measured by their output. Make the bricks. Then make more bricks. Then make the bricks without straw. Never enough. Never done. Rest was for the free. And they were not free. And when God brought them out, one of the very first things he gave them carved in stone, on the same tablets as "do not murder" and "do not steal," was a command to rest. The Sabbath. Stop, one day, put down the bricks. Not because you earned it. Because you belong to me now, and my children are not slaves. Do you understand what that means? God made rest a commandment. He didn't make it a reward. He didn't say you can rest once you've done enough. He said rest is not optional. Because I refuse to let you live like you're still in Egypt. And yet, look at you. Look at how you've been living. Answering every call. Carrying every burden. Saying yes when your whole body is screaming no. Serving in ministries that drained you dry. Being everything to everyone and nothing to yourself. And calling it faithfulness. Calling it sacrifice. Calling it love. But God is not the one who asked for that. Pharaoh asked for that. The voice that tells you your worth is in your output. That voice never came from heaven. Jesus said, "Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." He didn't say, "I'll give you rest once you've proven yourself." He said, "Come as you are, exhausted as you are, and I will give you the thing you've been dying for." Number 5 shocks people because they've spent their whole lives believing the opposite. They've built an entire identity around never stopping. And when they finally hear that God, the real God, the Father, actually commands them to rest, something in them breaks because they realize they've been enslaved to a lie for years and calling it devotion. And here's the part that gets me every time. On the 7th day of creation, when God rested, the Bible doesn't say he rested because he was tired. God doesn't get tired. He rested because he was finished. He looked at everything he had made, and he said, "It is good." And then he stopped. He built rest into the very rhythm of the universe before there was a single human being to command it. Rest isn't a break from the real work. Rest is a declaration that the work is complete. So when you rest, you're not being lazy. You're doing what God himself did. You're saying, with your whole exhausted body, "It is finished. I trust the one who holds it all." You're stepping into the same rhythm the Creator stepped into on the 7th day. Think about the disciples in the boat. in the middle of the storm, terrified they were going to drown. And where was Jesus? Asleep, in the back of the boat, on a cushion. The winds are howling, the waves are coming over the sides, and the Son of God is resting so deeply they have to wake him up. That's not carelessness. That's a man so anchored in his Father that a storm couldn't rob him of his rest. When he finally stood up, he spoke 3 words: peace. Be still, and the sea went flat as glass. Do you see it? The rest came before the miracle. He rested in the storm, and then he commanded the storm. Most of us have it backwards. We think we have to fix everything before we're allowed to rest. But God does his deepest work in the ones who have learned to sleep in the boat. Rest is holy. Rest is obedience. Rest is you declaring with your whole body that you trust God to hold the world together for 24 hours without your help. Lay the bricks down. You're not in Egypt anymore. The 6th thing God will never ask you to sacrifice is your children or the people he's given you to love. Now I want to be careful and clear here, because this one has been twisted more than any other, and I've seen it wreck families in the name of faith. Yes, there's a story in the Bible where God tells Abraham to offer his son Isaac, and people have used that story to justify all kinds of neglect, to justify parents who abandoned their kids for ministry, to justify people who ignored the ones right in front of them because they were serving God. But go back and actually read what happened on that mountain. Abraham climbs. He builds the altar. He raises the knife. And at the very last moment, God stops him. Do not lay a hand on the boy. God provides a ram in the thicket instead. The entire point of the story is that God does not want the child. He never wanted the child. He wanted Abraham's heart. And the moment he had it, he gave the son back. That's the God you serve. The one who provides the ram. The one who stops the knife. The one who gives the child back. So when someone tells you that you have to neglect your family to prove your devotion, when someone tells you the people you love are competition for God's affection, they are preaching Pharaoh again, not the Father. The people God placed in your life are not obstacles to your calling. Very often, they are your calling. The love you pour into your children, your spouse, your aging parents, your friends walking through the valley, that is not a distraction from serving God. That is serving God. Don't put the people you love on the altar to impress a God who already provided the ram. And the 7th thing God will never ask you to sacrifice is your hope. This is the last one, and I saved it here on purpose, because everything else on this list eventually comes back to it. Peace, voice, identity, discernment, rest. The people you love, you can lose all of them and still claw your way back if you hold on to this one thing. But if you lose your hope, you lose the thread that leads you home. The enemy knows this. That's why hope is the thing he goes after hardest. He doesn't usually attack you with one big blow. He wears you down. Disappointment by disappointment, delayed prayer by delayed prayer. Until one day you catch yourself saying, "What's the point? It's never going to change. I'm always going to be like this." That right there, that flat, gray, hopeless resignation, that is not humility, and it is not realism. It's a robbery in progress. Think about Hannah. Year after year she wanted a child. Year after year she was mocked for the very thing that broke her heart. She wept so hard in the temple that the priest thought she was drunk. She had every reason to give up hope. Every reason to say it's never happening. God has forgotten me. This is just my life now. But she kept showing up. She kept pouring out her soul. She held on to hope by a thread so thin you could barely see it, and God remembered her. Samuel was born from a hope that refused to die. Your hope is not naive. Your hope is a weapon. It's the thing that keeps you showing up to the temple when every reason says stay home. And God will never, never ask you to lay that down. He's the God who gives Hannah a son. He's the God who rolls the stone away. He's the author of every comeback that's ever been written. So hold on. Whatever you're holding on to right now, by whatever thin thread, do not let go. The story isn't over. God finishes what he starts. So there they are. 7 things God will never ask you to sacrifice. Your peace, your voice, your identity, your discernment, your rest, the people you love, and your hope. And I need you to notice what all 7 of them have in common. Every single one of them is a thing God gave you to make you more alive, more free, more you. The enemy's whole strategy is to convince you that God wants those things back, that being chosen means being emptied out until there's nothing left. But that's the lie of Egypt. The Father is not in the business of emptying you. He's in the business of filling you up. He doesn't call you chosen so he can take everything away. He calls you chosen because he wants to pour everything in. Now here's what I want from you. And I want you to be specific, because this matters. Out of these 7, your peace, your voice, your identity, your discernment, your rest, the people you love, your hope, I want you to tell me in the comments which one you have been sacrificing without realizing it. Just name it. Number 1 through 7, and one honest sentence about how it happened. Not a vague comment, the real one. The one that made your chest tighten when I said it. Because the moment you name it out loud is the moment you start taking it back. I'll be reading, and I'll be praying over what you write. This channel is created without ads and without platform income. If these messages have touched your heart, strengthened your faith, or helped you during a difficult moment, and you'd like to support this work, you can use the CR code on your screen or the contribution link in the pinned comment. Thank you for walking this path with us.